You are, we are, the divine embodiment of God in human form. We spend a lot of times working on the human part of ourselves, the outside selves within us, getting our jobs, working on the flaws that we have, becoming better people, becoming better at what we do. And that's a good thing. That's a human part of who we are. But somewhere along the line, we forget about the divine part of ourselves. God tells us that we are human and divine. But for some reason, you and me forget about the divine part of ourselves. There's something that resists embracing our divinity in God. You and I are human and divine. Human and divine. We are called to be the incarnation of Christ, the essence of God living in and through us, the embodiment of God's divine love in human flesh. And why is it so hard for us to claim that we are human, which is easy, yet we are divine? Divine because of God's grace and our cooperation with God's grace in and through us. So I invite us for a moment to go into the quiet and receive, to embrace, to experience our divinity, the other side of who we are, as it integrates itself into us as the incarnation, the embodiment of the human and divine nature of God in and through us, incarnation of love. So take a moment and quiet yourself, close your eyes, find a comfortable place to just be still. Focus on your breath, because our breath, our pneuma, the Spirit of God that breathes in and through us, is the pathway to our inner self. It quiets our mind. It allows our minds to sink into our hearts so they work as one. So breathe in on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And breathe out at a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 1, 2, 3. Breathe out 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 1, 2, 3. Breathe out 1, 2, 3. This breath, this pneuma, this Spirit of God is divine. Without this breath of God, this breath of heaven, you would not exist. Just embrace that sense that your breath is divine. It's the flow, the presence of God's breath in and through you. Pneuma, spirit in the Greek words. In the Jewish tradition, they say that when were born from our mother's wombs and the umbilical cord was cut. The next form of oxygen, the next form of breath we received when we went, ah, was God's breath breathing into our lungs, the spirit of the divine. And every breath we take, every breath you take, is the divine spirit of God. And so you are divine. We are divine. Every one of us is the divine embodiment of God with every breath we take. Receive that as gift. Be aware of your breath and know it is the divine spirit of God in you. Don't let your mind get trapped in trying to understand it, because it won't. Our minds are beautiful things. They're wonderful things, but they try to figure everything out. But the mind has its limitations. And as you move into that deeper space, your breath, breathing within your heart space, you move to a deeper level of understanding without knowing, a deeper level of trust. This breath, breathing within your lungs, is God, Spirit, divine. Whatever you call it, what does it feel like in your lungs, in your heart space? Can you let your mind sink into your heart and just trust? This is the divine part of you connecting with the human part of you. And you are one there in your heart space, in your lungs, breathing the wisdom of God, the breath of God, the Spirit of God. Breathe in God's divinity. Letting God's divinity in you with every breath. Connect with and transform your humanity into the oneness of God in you, one in you. You are, we are, everyone is the divine expression of God's love embodied in your human flesh. We are not God, but we are not other than God. Which means we are the divine embodiment of God's love and expression in and through you in human flesh, blood, and bones. Claim that. Embody that. Speak it to yourself as truth, because it is. This is who you are. You are the divine expression of God's amazing love made real through your human flesh, human and divine as one. One in you, one in God. Can you claim your divinity as one in God because of God's amazing grace? And when and if you do, not in your mind, because your mind won't understand it, it's beyond rational thinking, it's more heart thinking. When you claim your divinity, as you claim your divinity, moment by moment, bit by bit, you realize who you are. The human and divine expression of God's divinity in and through you and through every creature God creates. Accept that as truth.